God here. And it's football season. And it's like 100 degrees outside. Sorry about that. Welcome to Season 3 of Gods of Odds, hosted by two of my favorites, Brad Hoyseth and Dave Daba.
Welcome to the Gods of Odds. It is Super Bowl weekend coming up. That is Brad Hoyseth over there in beautiful Southern California. I'm Dave Daba up in Northern California, and we are both super excited to discuss the Super Bowl, which is in beautiful Glendale, Arizona, or as Chris Berman would say, they're playing the game at the big toaster in the desert. Mr. Hoyseth, I know you are playing hurt. Season 3 of Gods of Odds has faced its COVID challenges. Mr. Hoyseth finally tested negative, but still has basically a cloud over his head. Brad, how are you doing today?
Well, we're here. I had COVID last week. Actually, it didn't really affect me that long. I mean, I started on the latest drug, Paxlovid, I think, or something it's called. And within a couple of days, I actually felt pretty good. My muscle aches and all that kind of stuff ended. And then went back to work this week and got this just terrible head cold that I can't seem to shake. But it woke up feeling a little bit better today. I would say that I'm probably very likely to play, on Sunday if they were to have an injury report for us. At the very worst case scenario, I would be listed as questionable.
Yeah.
But I'm a gamer, Dave, so I'm here. I'm playing injured, and I'm ready to roll.
All right. Now, before Brad, before we get into the Super Bowl, the big Super Bowl predictions, which my prediction should not shock you at all. But before we get into all of that, all sorts of news and notes from around your National Football League over the last couple weeks. A lot of coaching changes have been made. Of course, we had the big Tom Brady retirement number 2. I will believe it officially, Brad, when Kyle Shanahan and the San Francisco 49ers call up Tom Brady on week 14 and Brady allows it to go to voicemail. I will believe that Tom Brady, to me, is not retired until next season ends. And then Tom Brady's retired because that guy just simply wants to still play football, and you can tell.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I saw his little message that he put out on Twitter or whatever it was, and I don't know. I think it seemed pretty genuine. I think I said maybe a few episodes ago that, him and Aaron Rodgers, to me, both just looked like they were finished. I mean, I didn't see the passion.
Yeah.
Usually you would see them go to the sidelines after a bad possession and they would scream down the offensive line or a wide receiver or something, and they would try to light a fire into their team. I just didn't see that this year. It just seemed to me like both these guys have reached a point where, I've accomplished everything I need to accomplish in the game. And I just don't feel like doing it anymore. And so I think Brady's done. I think it's finally over. I think he realized that this year, I think the year might have been actually a little bit embarrassing to him because there was times when he just didn't look like a very good football player. I think he realized that the skill sets, the mind is still there, but the body is just not following anymore. And I just kind of feel like it's time, and he finally realized it.
Look, Tom Brady is absolutely willing to be embarrassed. He put out a underwear model post the other day that was embarrassing, Brad. I would have to say.
Wait, was it more embarrassing than the movie 80 for Brady? I mean, because that's embarrassing.
Now, I haven't had a chance to watch that, and unfortunately or fortunately, it wasn't on any of the long haul flights I've been on over the last month. So I feel like that's a straight to Netflix movie that probably isn't going to make huge box office. But Gronk is in it, so I've got to at least see the Gronk piece just to see where he's at with that. But hey, on the coaching front, all sorts of the things happened with the coaches being hired. I'm not even sure I don't think the Arizona Cardinals are like the last remaining team that hasn't officially hired anybody that I'm aware of. But Sean Payton to Denver was the big news, and in his sort of like introduction to the team, one of the reporters asked him if the players are going to be allowed to have their own staffs in the facility. And Sean Payton looked like he was about to lose it. So he said absolutely not. So I think Russell Wilson's parking spot, his office, and his posse are no longer going to be options for him in Denver. We had that. We had the, for me, disturbing news that the Carolina Panthers, instead of sticking with their interim head coach, decided to bring Frank Reich in as their head coach. Frank Reich, as much as I like Frank Reich as a head coach, he got replaced by Jeff Saturday. Look, I know there was a Scooby-Doo meddling owner that got involved in it, but is still like he didn't. It's like Adam Gase. He didn't need a job right away. He needed a year off to recharge what had happened to him. So Frank Reich, the new head coach of the Carolina Panthers, that's the one hire I really didn't like so far this year. D'Amico Ryans is in Houston, where the football team that drafted him originally. So that's a good move for the Houston Texans. They signed him to a 6-year deal, Brad. As a 6-year deal, which is unheard of in the NFL ranks. And then finally, I did just want to bring up the fact that the Vikings, I think, finally got it right on the defensive side of the ball, bringing in Brian Flores. Look, he's not a magician, so they're not going to suddenly catapult to the top of the defensive world next season. But anything, in the middle of the pack would be an absolute huge improvement for the Vikings. It was a solid hire across the board for the Vikes and their coaching staff.
Yeah, I mean, I remember us talking about Flores when he got blown out.
Yeah,
because I think he'd won his final 7 games or something as the coach of the Dolphins, and I don't recall ever seeing somebody getting fired on a 7-game winning streak. That's pretty rare. But, I just remember the Dolphins when he was there, they had a bunch of injury problems that final year. They got off to a terrible start. He made a nice run down the stretch. And defensively, they become a pretty decent football team, during his tenure there. So I like that hire. I think it's some young blood. I think the Vikings need to bring in some young blood. I mean, at some point, the old dying dinosaurs, the players stop listening to them anymore, They want to hear somebody that they can relate to. I think Flores is a good hire, but I agree. He's got a lot of work cut out for him. There's just not a lot of talent there, minus Eric Kendricks. I mean, it's almost like a complete rebuild on that defense. And so there's a lot of pieces missing. And then there's always the mystery of what's going to happen on offense. Kirk Cousins 1 year left on his deal. I'm a firm believer the Vikings should have looked for another spot for him. I know that he's got a kind of a somewhat no trade clause in his contract. He's got to at least approve it if he wants to get traded. But there's different ways to handle that, Dave. You sit down with his agent and you say, look, if you don't accept a trade, we're not going to play you this year. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, suddenly a 36 or 37-year-old quarterback goes, wow, it's going to be pretty hard to market me. if I haven't played in a year,
Yeah.
But there's some tough things you have to say to guys sometimes, and negotiations are hard. And unfortunately, the previous regime with Spielman put them in a really difficult spot with Cousins and the way they laid out that contract. And now the Vikings are on the hook for just name a number, $1 billion. I don't know what it's costing them to have Cousins play this year, and then he's going to be gone, right? So,
Yep.
Kirk Cousins is playing it close to the vest. He's saying all the right things. He's saying, I want to retire in Minnesota. Of course you do. They gave you, your own island and, all the money to spend on it that you wanted in the time you were there. But, the reality is that he's still Kirk Cousins. I still don't think he's a top 15 quarterback in the NFL, and he's making top 5 money.
Yeah, I would say you and I disagree on the top 15 statement, but probably not by that many spots at the end. The end of the day, he's just he's just good enough that you would he's just good enough that he's hard to replace. And I think that's the issue with him. It's like, you're not getting, he's like a tutor that can get you a B. He's never going to get you an A, but you're satisfied with the B. And this should be all about winning Super Bowls. And they should be literally drafting a quarterback every single year until they get it right. And they should look at, like, I don't think Brock Purdy is going to be a Hall of Fame quarterback. And I don't think we're going to be sitting here talking about Patrick Mahomes versus Brock Purdy, 10 years from now. But he's a great temporary sort of solution. And he was the last pick in the NFL draft. The draft is so important. And the 49ers do it basically better than anybody else. And the Vikings could learn a lot from how Kyle Shanahan approaches quarterbacks.
Yeah. To me, quarterbacks are, look at the final play for the Vikings this year. The Vikings need what? They need 13 yards and 19 yards or something. And Kirk Cousins threw a check down on a play where there was no chance they were going to get it unless it was an exceptional play by whoever caught the ball. It wasn't, Hawkinson was not going to get to the sticks unless, he suddenly turned into Barry Sanders, right? And so to me, that's, a quarterback's done when they start checking down, Dave. And because what happens when you check down is the guy who checks down often will always have a higher quarterback rating because they're not risking throwing interceptions. They're always going to have more yards. They're going to have a higher passing percentage. But they're not the guy that's going to win the Super Bowl. And so, it looks good on paper, those stats and all that stuff. But I've always said Kirk Cousins is not the kind of guy that wins the Super Bowl. He can't think on his feet. It's, how many times have we seen this? He's taken plays in a 2-minute drill where a guy that's been playing as long as he is, they ought to know what they're going to do, right? And so, I still think he's a number 15 quarterback in the league. And unfortunately, he's been paid like a top 5 guy for the last few years, and he's got one more year left.
Yeah. And, you end up in that Derek Carr, lame duck quarterback scenario with Kirk Cousins. And I think, like, organizationally, they know what they have. I think they firmly believe that. So here's the danger in all of this is that they probably believe that, if we can just duplicate what we did on offense last year and we can, become a middle of the pack defense, we could have gone deep in the playoffs this year. And that's just not the case. You start to see bits and pieces of deterioration in Cousins' game.
And Daniel Jones was a better quarterback in that game. He was.
Yeah. For he was for that game, and then we saw what happened to him in the next one. It's really tough. There's only a handful of really great or good quarterbacks in the National Football League, and everybody else is sort of middle of the road. And to your point, I don't mind having a middle of the road quarterback. I just don't want to pay for it as a top 5 player. But look, Cousins is brilliant and how he got his money from Washington to begin with, and then how he parlayed that into, as you would call it, an island. He's got island type money. That's what he's running with. All right, Mr. Hoysef, I think we should get into the Super Bowl, last game of the year. I will throw it over to you for your analysis first.
Well, yeah, it's interesting because it started out as a 2.5 point line in favor of the Eagles, and it's now slipped down to 1.5, which for the people out there, and they pretty much know that means there's more money going on the Chiefs than is going on the Eagles. I don't really know what these people are looking at, Dave. I look at these two teams. I look at the Chiefs, and you have an absolute witch at quarterback in Patrick Mahomes, right? And you got arguably the best tight end in the league and Travis Kelce. And that's it. That's what I see, Dave, with the Chiefs. I don't see a lot else there. Now, I thought they got an immense amount of calls to win that game against Cincinnati down the stretch. I think Cincinnati was a wounded team coming in with a banged up offensive line. But hey, I forgot to say they also have Chris Jones at defensive tackle, who's great. The Chiefs.
On the defensive side of the ball, they vastly improved over the last 6 weeks, and
they've played better.
Yeah,
they've played better. But again, I don't know if that was such a function of incompetence on the other side of the ball from the Jacksonville Jaguars and then on to Cincinnati, who couldn't seem to keep people off of Joe Burrow's back in that game. But either way, they're now facing an Eagles team who I think at every single position is loaded. Everybody's looking. The line I think was an adjustment made based upon Patrick Mahomes' health. And now people are feeling more comfortable. Mahomes is healthy. Well, he's probably the MVP. He's probably the guy that's going to get the victory. But I think that's a personal thing for Jalen Hurts. I think Jalen Hurts has had a great year. And I think the Eagles can beat you in so many ways. They have one of the best running games in the league. They have A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith on the outside. Dallas Goedert's a very good tight end. And I think the Eagles are taking this thing personally. And I think it's going to be a blowout. I really do. If it was 6.5, I would still take the Eagles. I think the Eagles are going to win comfortably in this game.
Well, okay. So just so everybody knows, Brad and I have not talked or even exchanged any text on the Super Bowl at all. That is that's fascinating analysis. And while I agree with everything you just said minus your prediction, I will say this, like if the Kansas City Chiefs did not have Patrick Mahomes on this team, they would be barely sniffing the playoffs. Like if Brock Purdy were their quarterback and he was healthy, they'd barely be sniffing the playoffs. If you were to take Jalen Hurts off of this team and put in, Nick Mullins or somebody else, they since they have so much talent across the board, they've got Darius Big Slay Hayes or Mays or whatever his name. Big Slay is in the second. Like their secondary is phenomenal. Their linebacker core is fantastic. Their edge rushers are great. They have two of the best offensive linemen in the game that are going to be Hall of Famers one day on the Philadelphia side of the fence. And, they're playing in a neutral site, for the Super Bowl. And yet they're only favored by 1.5 points. And so, you called Patrick Mahomes a witch, I think a little bit earlier, which is the point I'm going to make here is that unless like Patrick Mahomes gets hurt early in the game. Like, I don't see a world, and your analysis is like pretty much on with like 70% of the people who are talking about the Super Bowl this year are favoring the Eagles with a similar analysis. I just don't see Patrick Mahomes losing this game. And I think he's gonna, pull out some of his black magic. They're gonna keep the game. It's going to be a lot closer than you think. I don't think it's going to be as high scoring as a lot of people would like it to be. I think this is the Chiefs winning on a last second field goal by 2 or 3 points. I think that's what this thing's going to come down to, and it's going to solidify Patrick Mahomes as one of the best quarterbacks of all time, and he's only 5 years into his career. He's just that much better than Jalen Hurts, and Jalen Hurts is I think still his shoulder's still bothering him. He won't admit it. And then I think this also comes down to coaching. And do I believe an Andy Reid-led Kansas City Chiefs football team that's had 2 weeks to prepare for a game is going to get blown out by his former team, the Philadelphia Eagles, coached by Nick Sirianni, who happened to be his wide receiver coach in Kansas City when he got there, and he fired him? He had to fire everybody because they were like 2-14 the year before, to be fair to Sirianni. There's just no way the Eagles are blowing out the Chiefs in this game. This is gonna come down to that field goal, and I can't wait to send you the text.
Dave, I don't know. You must be listening to too many honks out there for the Chiefs. Okay, let me tell you something. This Philadelphia defense is legit, and Travis Kelce's going to get double covered. And trust me, they are not afraid of Marquez Valdes-Scantling and Juju Smith-Schuster.
Yeah.
They no longer have Tyreek Hill there. And when you take away Kelce, there's just not a lot there. Now, Marquez Valdes-Scantling played well. He had a great game in that game versus Cincinnati. I thought Cincinnati didn't play very well defensively. I don't think Cincinnati's got a great defense to begin with. This Philadelphia Eagle defense is legit. I'm a believer with John Madden, the late John Madden, that defense starts at the corners. And, they are as good as it gets in the secondary. And they are not – I think it's going to take some long grind-out drives by the Chiefs to score points. I really do. And I just believe that once Kelce is taken away, which they will take him away, you're going to be relying on Isaiah Pacheco and Juju Smith-Schuster and Scantling and guys like that. And Philadelphia is good across the board. Like you said, they're loaded. And so and offensively, they can beat you in so many ways. They can run wide. They can run up the middle. They can throw over the middle to Goddard. They can throw deep to A.J. Brown. Yeah, they've just got weapons everywhere. And I just look at it, and I think it just looks from an X's and O's perspective. When you look at the talent pool, to me, it looks like a one-sided affair.
Yeah, I mean, it absolutely does. And I agree. Like, it totally, like, across the board, the Eagles should win this game. Like, I have no doubt in that. But there's that Mahomes X factor. And, I'm not just, because as a guy that works for me is in Missouri, I'm not just trying to be nice to him. Patrick Mahomes has just been amazing. We're witnessing something where a team can be so outgunned across the board, and yet go into a neutral site and only be an underdog by 1.5 Mahomes is. I hate drinking this much Mahomes Kool-Aid, but it really he really is the most special quarterback I've ever witnessed in the NFL.
Yeah, no. Hey, look, you'll get no argument from me. That guy has done things that nobody else could do. Okay, against the Bengals.
Yeah.
And against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Okay, this is a different animal, the Eagles. The Eagles have been the best team in football all season long. And I just, look, they up front on Philadelphia, this is what I was talking about when I say defense starts at the corners. The Eagles, with Darius Slay, who might be the best corner in the league right now, and guys like Bradbury and Gardner Johnson and Blankenship, I mean, that whole secondary is just legit. And I don't think there's a thing about the Chiefs that scare them in terms of pass catching. I mean, Travis Kelce obviously does his thing, and he's going to get his, pound of flesh. But, you look at this defense for the Eagles, and they got some old guys up front like Fletcher Cox and, Brandon Graham, stuff like that. They're still playing well because the secondary is so great. Yeah. I mean, they give you so much time to get home. And, look at Danny Jones. What happened to him, after he got done playing the Vikings, he had to go play the Eagles, and I found out that was a whole different animal, right? And so, this is a good football team. Wait, did Danny Jones, did they lose to the Cowboys or did they lose to the Eagles? I can't remember.
Eagles. Yeah,
I mean, they look like a different football team a week after playing the Vikings, right? And that's because he was playing a legit defense. This Eagle team is really good. Look, I'm not a, Oliver Stone, conspiracy theorist, but I was really alarmed at the fourth quarter of that game, the officiating in that game, Kansas City versus Cincinnati. I thought there was something really off about it. I thought it was a really close game that the referees just kind of steered in a direction. I know that sounds conspiracy theorist, but generally when you go to the Super Bowl, that doesn't happen. They allow the kids to play, and it gets really physical, and the Eagles physically are a far better football team than the Chiefs are.
Yeah, I would say the only conspiracy I would buy into is that Vegas knows that the Chiefs are going to win, and they're getting everybody to put their money on the Eagles. That would be the only conspiracy I'm going to dive into. It is going to be, though, I'm personally, super excited to sit down and watch it. We've got the big Apple Music halftime show. Pepsi has been washed away out of our minds for the NFL halftime show starring Rihanna, Brad.
Whatever. And I don't care. To me, Rihanna, she means nothing to me. I don't, I'm a classic oldies, 70s and 80s rock and roll guy. I mean, just, I actually liked the show last year when they had in LA. I thought it was a good show with all the history of, I think it was rap and hip hop, that kind of thing. That was pretty cool. But, Rihanna, I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care about Rihanna.
Well, I like to, I can get, I can listen to your Eagles and your classic rock, which might include Styx and Mr. Roboto as much as you. But I absolutely stay up on what the kids are listening to. And it's funny because Rihanna isn't as hip sort of as she was, a couple years ago. So be interesting to see who she brings along. And then, of course, we have the Super Bowl commercials. I personally, Brad, I don't know if you know this. I try to avoid all of the shows that will show you the Super Bowl commercials that are coming out before they actually come out. I want to be surprised. So anyway,
let me take over. You sound like you're getting a little choked up over this deal. Let me take over here for a second, okay?
Yeah, let me drink.
Unlike Dave Daba, we've heard about commercials. We've heard about it. Look, I show up to watch the Super Bowl to watch football. Okay, I don't care about the halftime show. I don't care about the commercials. Afterwards, everybody's like, "Hey, what was the best?" I don't care. I'm there. Look, I'm going to a party. Great party, by the way. They're going to have Kansas City barbecue, and they're going to have Philly cheesesteaks.
Oh, I love
that. Right after the football, on the pecking order, the actual football game, is the food that's served. Okay, the commercials and the halftime show, that's way down at the bottom of the list of things that's important to me. I go there, number one, to eat and watch football, because you know what happens after the football game on Sunday, Dave? Radio silence for about the next 6 months. It's miserable.
Yeah, it's terrible. I know. All right. Well, I did my traditional of turning down Super Bowl parties because I want to be able to hear the commercials and hear the game. So we for like the last 10 years have just sat in the quiet comfort of our own family room and ordered round table pizza and wings. So that will be the DeBaugh routine.
Look, now you remember what you served, right?
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, you don't remember the commercial.
And like one of my boys, he comes up to me a couple weeks ago and that's what he was talking about. Or what are we getting? What's the food? What's going to be on the menu?
Football is 1A and the food is 1B, right? On Super Bowl Sunday, right?
Now I love the idea of a good Philadelphia cheesesteak sandwich, but I've yet to find one in Northern California. And I also love the idea of good barbecue. And there is, but it's out of county. I got to go to the East Bay around here for like really good barbecue that might even come remotely close to what they have in Kansas City. So.
Well, Dabo, you and the wife and kid, just you and the wife. I don't want your kids coming down, but you're going to have to come to the Hoyseth household. No offense to the kids, but some things are just better left to adults, right? And that's eating barbecue and watching football. But you guys got to make the trip down here. I got a smoker now. I've been smoking stuff on the barbecue for a number of years. I've got that thing down to a science. And one of the years we'll have to get together for the Super Bowl. But I look forward to this year's. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's an intriguing game. I mean, it is. I mean, anytime you get Patrick Mahomes involved, it's going to be intriguing. I just don't think it's going to be intriguing past the middle of the second quarter. I really don't.
Well, as Brad makes his way to his second Philadelphia cheesesteak sandwich in the third quarter, he's going to realize the errors of his ways, but we'll just have to see. Look, it's at the end of the day, what I'm always looking for in these Super Bowls is a good game.
Okay, give me the final score. How's that? You give me a final score. What is it going to be?
24-21 Chiefs.
24-21 Chiefs. Okay, I'm going to go 38-24 Eagles.
38-24.
That Kansas City
Eagles.
Defense, Dave, I've been telling you for the entire season that Kansas City defense isn't any good, and they're going to get steamrolled.
Yeah. Hey, look, I mean, to me, this is coaching, and they have all the necessary pieces to do everything you're saying. So,
coaching looks really good when you got talent.
Yeah, it does. It does. It absolutely does. You don't have a strong record label without a Rihanna on it.
Do we know the greatest musicians ever from Kansas City or from Philadelphia? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't remember any really. I mean, I'm sure there was. We're probably missing a lot here, but there probably has been some great band that came out of Philadelphia. Kansas City, I'm sure, must have had a lot of great blues musicians back in the day, but I'm not aware of any music that was compiled after the 60s that ever came out of Kansas City. But
just sort of curious if Kansas. The band was from.
I'm not. I think the Ozark Mountain Daredevils, maybe, Dave. What do you think of that one?
I love it. All right, Mr. Hoyseth, we were planning on doing just a super short Super Bowl preview and prediction show. Just so everybody knows out there. a brand new disturbance.live website is up and running. There's an entire page dedicated to Goo, or Gods of Odds, on there as well. There are 2 disturbance shows on podcast form, a Disturbance NFL show and a Disturbance NBA show. So if you're on your various platforms, you can check those out. Maybe
I look forward to coming back again next year, Dave, for season 4. I never thought anybody would want to listen to us after about 4 weeks. So we managed to get to season 4 next year. I'm looking up at those helmets at the top there, and we're going to have to put a 22 under mine as well. Because I'm a 2-time winner now.
Yeah.
Does that mean I'm twice as good as you, or anything like that? Or
yeah. Yours will say 22. Mine will have an asterisk next to the 21, and I think that's yours will be 20/22. You'll have you'll have two numbers on yours, and then mine will definitely just have an asterisk next to it, maybe with a note that said he went for it but failed. Something like that. Anyways, hey, listen, it's been a super fun year. Hopefully we'll get Brad into the onto a couple of the NFL disturbance shows during the off season. If we can sneak him in, that would be great. But until season 4 of Gods of Odds, and thanks to everybody out there that tunes in sort of around the globe, believe it or not. We do this just for the fun of it. We're not actually trying to put any dollars in our own pockets. We've proven that, year after year. So for Brad Hoyseth over there in beautiful Southern California, I'm Dave DeBop in Northern California, wishing you all a tremendous rest of your sports viewing week.